Well, hi everyone. Well, this week I'm going to talk about the training that we receive on Summer Institute, on SI, the kind of training we receive, the way it's delivered, the content, what we learn from it, all of those things, so you'll have an idea of what you're going to experience when you start on the course. Well, at SI, we had a number of different styles, formats of training. We started off with a 2-day, really intensive training course on just the absolute basics of teaching, which was just very, very intensive, very comprehensive, but also quite inspiring to begin with. And I guess I thought that the whole of the training would then be like that. That didn't turn out to be the case, because we then started to unpack the training and look at other areas in more detail. So we looked at things like how to manage behaviour in the classroom, how to plan lessons. There was some training on leadership, on how Teach First works. But it was really an initial taster, an initial guidance on what you would do when you first got into the classroom in September. The format was a mixture of things. Some of it was traditional lectures. Some of it was done in small groups. Some of the focus was on teaching in general, teaching techniques that could apply to all subjects. Other parts of the training were specifically targeted at those of us, in my case, who were going to teach geography, and they were mixed around on different days, and so the whole 6 weeks had quite a mixed feel to it. Often you would look at the content for the next day, and you wouldn't really know what to expect, and almost every day was quite a surprise as to what really then transpired. You often wake up in the morning thinking, "Oh, that's that. What does it really mean? What's really going to happen?" And then, as the day unravelled, you would then start to see what the training really did include. But it was the timetable was pretty heavy. We were studying most of the time, and looking back, I think there are some things that I really took on board. I really sort of soaked up, and there were other things that, looking back, I think, oh wow, we actually learned that. I didn't realise that. And I think there are some things that you struggle to take in and really understand the significance of until you're really in the classroom. But then what I do have is now resources from that time that I can then go back to and actually look at now that I'm quite some way into my first year, and draw on as I then pursue my educational practice and strengthen my ability. In terms of assessment, I mean, of course, that's something that many of us that are going into teaching from different careers may not have experienced this for some time. So there is a degree of getting used to that again. I think in terms of assessment, there was one essay that we had to write while we were there. Quite hard to fit that in when you're teaching, when you're studying all day. There took quite a lot to really focus on that. The other thing is that there are quite a lot of activities that you need to do to then write up certain things that are going on that you then upload online into something called Blue Sky, which is a resource that captures your experiences. You're writing reflections about what's going on. You're doing certain work and just uploading it as evidence to show that you've done certain things. And I think the key thing there is stay on top of it. Do bits every day, and it's not too difficult. Leave it for a few days, and it can really build up and become quite a big task to then catch up with yourself. And those that really stayed on top of it every day, I think, had an easier time of the 6 weeks compared to those who were struggling the last minute to pull everything together. In terms of teaching while on SI, we would receive teaching from geography specialists, specialists in pedagogy, former teachers, former senior leaders, some outside visitors. It was a real variety of teaching staff. I have a geography tutor who started teaching us on SI and who now continues to teach us throughout the year, who I think has shown real personal care towards those of us that are studying with her. And the continuity that we've had working with her has been great. And so there's really quite a good bond that's developed within the geography cohort and with her and one or two other geography tutors as well that are teaching us. Another of the really exciting parts of the SI program was learning alongside others. You're very much put into different groups, a London group, a geography group, and other groups, and you really start to spend quite a lot of time learning alongside others who have come from all sorts of backgrounds, bring different experiences to the table. And so, for example, when I was teaching for a couple of weeks at a school in West London, I was put into a group of about six or seven geographers who really worked very closely together, supporting each other. And some of the time I would teach particularly with one other member of that group, sometimes in twos and threes, sometimes alone. And that was a really nice time to really build relationships, share resources. And I'm still very much in contact with those students, particularly that I spent those 2 weeks with. It was it was a time when we needed to draw on each other's support and each other's experience. And I've learned a huge amount from other participants on my course in a way which has been really rewarding and enriching, and I think far more so than I expected. And that's very much continued. I'm now teaching at a school in Newham in East London, and I think there's 6, 7, 8 of us from Teach First in my year there. And I've learnt a lot from the other participants in a very inspiring and encouraging way. And of course, I've tried to help them as much as I can do. But there's certainly something very positive, very collaborative, very supportive about the whole environment in which the SI is taking place, and then in my case, certainly in the school that I'm now working in, amongst those of us that are in the same year on Teach First, and also those that have done Teach First in past years. There's something that sort of brings us together, and we certainly try to help each other. So I guess the key question is, after SI being completed, did I feel prepared and ready to step into a classroom? I think looking back, I certainly didn't feel a huge amount of anxiety about suddenly starting to teach. I don't think I felt hugely prepared for it either. But I guess I felt like I did have just about enough to start stepping into the classroom and start teaching. Just about enough to get me through the first weeks. Would I have wanted more? Looking back, yes, I would have done, and I guess other teaching programs, training programs would give you that. However, what has happened is that I've learned huge amounts by training on the job, and that's what it is. You're really training on the job, and every single lesson, every single day, you are learning something. You are learning from colleagues, you're learning from support tutors and mentors, and you're constantly tweaking things. That worked there, that didn't work, and over time, you start to build that up. So it's a huge challenge, and I think halfway into my first year, I would say now I'm feeling like, yeah, things are starting to come together. But it's taken until now and to get to that point, and I'm very, very much aware of all that I don't know, how much I've still got to learn, the work I've still got to put in. But I do feel supported both by my colleagues in the school and by my mentors and tutors at Teach First in a way that I know that will enable me to get there. But it's certainly a challenge. It's a huge challenge, but I've found it to be a manageable challenge.